Hi, welcome back to working with Photoshop. This is our second week in Photoshop. Last week we learned how to edit photos, crop photos, make them grayscale, adjust the tone and contrast. And this week we're going to focus on making cutouts. Now, making cutouts is a fun feature you can do in photos purely for design purposes. Again, making cutouts probably not a journalistic purpose, unless you're like making a cutout to be like a mug shot that you're going to put of like a column writer in a on a newspaper page or something like that, or magazine page. But for our purposes, we're going to work and show you how you can do cutouts in Photoshop on a very basic level. We're going to be working with two photos, and the photos are going to be of a varying difficulty. The first one will be Joe Mug, and these are all in your canvas shell. So as you can see, this photo shot against a solid red background. So this will be pretty easy to cut out in Photoshop. The second one we're going to work with will be a little more difficult. It's called Joe Matt Champs. And this photo, you'll see how Photoshop's auto um, recognition tool won't work as well with this, and we'll have to do a little more cleaning up. And the reason why I'm showing you this in Photoshop, if you have a smartphone, most smartphones, I know Apple, definitely with the iPhone, you can easily just select the subjects in your photo, and it has AI technology that can recognize that, and you can drag the people in the photo into another photo, for example. But sometimes it's not a perfect background, and things come in that you don't want in, or things are left out that you want left out, and that's what we're going to be working with today. So I'm going to open up my Photoshop, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with Joe Mug. So I'm just going to drag that in here, and you can see it's open up in Photoshop. We talked a little bit about the different menu options last week. I want to make sure I'm on the quick selection tool. Um, and another thing, there are many ways to make cutouts in Photoshop, at least 24 ways to do it. I'm showing you one way. If you find another way that works better for you, so be it. Go with that. I think this is one of the easiest ways. And also, the way I'm showing you doesn't use an eraser tool that they have in the toolbar here in Photoshop. The problem with an eraser tool is that once you use an eraser tool and take it out, you can't get that back. You have to start from scratch again. So I like using the quick selection tool. And at the very top here, you'll see that there is an option to select subject. So I'm just going to go ahead and click select subject. And you can see Photoshop thinking, and boom, you see the little outline here. It's selecting the subject again. This is on a perfect solid background. So if you're taking pictures that you know you might want to use as cutouts, the best advice I can give you is take that picture on a solid background. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and click on this tool, select and mask. And what this will do is it will show what that cutout's going to look like. Now, you may not have these little checkered marks. I really like working with these checkered marks here. What you're setting on your computer, the transparency might be a little off. You want to set your transparency to 100, so that way you can see all the checkered marks here. And you can see that although this is a beautiful cutout, there is still some noticeable red from the background there. I think the cutout around the shirt is fine. I think on the right side, it's fine. A little red there. On the top, it's fine, but definitely right here is where we see some things that Photoshop didn't recognize. I'm going to go ahead and take my zoom tool, click on that, and I'm just going to go in a little further here, and you can see what I'm talking about. Um, Again, in Photoshop, whenever you select on a tool, you could just click the button and it will zoom in this instance, or you can hold the Alt Option button and you can see how my plus sign on my magnifying glass turns into a minus sign, and that will help you zoom out. If I'm zooming in again here, you can see we missed a little bit here on the auto recognition because of my scraggly beard, but that's okay. I'm not too worried about that because no one's going to be looking at this photo zoomed in at 300%. Everyone's going to be looking at, you know, probably at this level, or even zoomed in 100%, and it's not as noticeable there, but this is definitely noticeable. So I want to fix this. So how I'm going to fix this is I'm going to take my brush tool and I'm going to click on it, and you can see when I click on it, a little tiny circle appears. I can make this circle bigger by clicking on this and clicking on size and dragging it up here. I want to make sure my hardiness is set to 100%, and you can see now my circle is much bigger. What this does is this takes portions that you're basically telling Photoshop, hey, I don't want this included in my photo. So for example, I'm just going to do something very destructive here. I'm going to say, let's say I don't want this shirt in here. So I could go ahead and take my brush and hold my Alt Option key and say, I don't want that. So now when this cutout comes out, you're going to see a big hole here. But of course, I do want that in there. So I'm going to undo, which is just Command Z to get rid of that. Now I want to work on this red that I don't want to see. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in, and I'm going to go back to my brush tool. Okay, and this circle is a little big because this is telling me that it's going to basically block out everything that's in that circle. So I want to make my circle the size of my brush. Think of it like a paintbrush. You have large paintbrushes, you have small paintbrushes. I want one of those smaller paintbrushes here, and I think that will work well. So about 40 pixels. And again, I'm going to hold the Alt Option key, and it's going to give me a minus sign. And as I'm holding that key, I'm just going to click and try to get rid of some of that red. I think this is still a little too large. I'm going to undo my last three things by going Command Z, Command Z, Command Z. I'm going to make this brush a little smaller even. Okay. And now I'm going to hold my Alt Option key down, and I like that. Now what I'm doing is I'm holding the key down and I'm holding the button down on my mouse. I'm just dragging it along here to get out the red. Okay, there's a little bit more there I missed. Okay. Now I'm going to intentionally make a mistake here to show you something. I want to get on those edges there. And then, oh crap, my hand slipped. Let's pretend my hand slipped there. Now I could, of course, I could go ahead and undo this, but the problem is it's going to undo all the edits I just made. So an easier way, if I made a mistake like this, because obviously I don't want my, what is that, my right eye to be cut out there, I'm just gonna go ahead and not hold the Alt Option key and on the brush tool and just go ahead and let's put that stuff back in there. So you could use this brush tool to not just exclude stuff, but if there's something in your photo that when you did the select subject that Photoshop didn't recognize, you could include that. So again, I'm just holding my mouse down as I'm making these changes. And there we go. So I think I'm good with that. Let me zoom out, click my zoom tool again, Alt Option. I want to go back down here to see maybe I can work a little bit here. Let's go ahead. It's really difficult because of the scraggly beard again. I want to make my brush even smaller here, and I'm going to just hold the Alt Option key, and it's okay if I'm cutting out my hair. There's really no way around it. This is not going to be perfect. And it's never a perfect science when you're trying to do something like this, unless you have a perfect shape, like a ball or something like that, that you're trying to cut out. But whenever you're dealing with cutting out people, it's never going to be perfect. Okay, so see, I'm happy with that. Maybe I'll just, whoops, I want to put the minus sign, so Alt Option down. Okay, and boy, that's scarily a close shot of me. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out. I can also just go here and click that I want to look at this, let's say 75%. Okay, and I'm just going to say that I'm happy with this. Mostly it was what Photoshop automatically detected. We did a little bit of touch up there, and we're not done yet, because the next step is, if we want to go back and edit this file later, we want to go ahead and output this to a new layer with layer mask. I'm going to hit OK here. The next step is saving this. Now, if I go ahead and just save this like I saved my previous file, go to Save As, make sure you're in the right place. And let's say I'm going to go ahead and save this as Joe Mug edit.jpg. I'll go ahead and hit OK here. The problem with this will be it's not saving the transparent layer. And I want to show you what I mean. So I'm going to go ahead and open up another app. I'm going to open up PowerPoint, and I just have just this blank screen here. Let's say I go ahead and import this Joe Mug edit file on here. And you can see, well, that's not really what I want, because it saved it as a white background. I want this to just have the outline of my body on this green background. So I want to go ahead and save it in a different format that my other programs will recognize is not a JPEG. It's not a hard image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it as a PNG. And to do that, you want to open up your file again. You go to Export, and you want to do Export As, and PNG is the format that you want. You want to make sure transparency is clicked, and click export, and then it'll prompt you to save it where you want. I'm going to go ahead and save it as Joe Mug edit. It's automatically going to be a PNG file. And what this is basically doing is it's saving all the data with the file as well, and telling whatever program you're going to import it in that this isn't just a picture that you should take as one full thing. This is something that has different data in it. And when we go ahead and import that into Photoshop, you can see, into PowerPoint, you can see now that we have the cutout that we want, as opposed to the JPEG, which pretty much just gave us a full shot. Okay, so next up, I'm going to work with my next project. So I'll close this one out. I already saved this. I'm going to work with this Joe Matt Champs file, and I'll go ahead and drag that in Photoshop. And again, this is the photo. You can see the clear difference between the previous photo we worked with and this. This has a messy background. Ideally, I want to cut out that will include the championship trophy here. But I don't want, the grass and the fence and any of that crap in the background as well. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure, again, my quick selection tool is selected. I'll go ahead and select subject, and you'll see what Photoshop will do here. So you see it is very messy. Photoshop pretty much has Matthew selected well, even the little scraggly hair here, like he's selected pretty well, but you can see it doesn't have the trophy selected at all. It's cutting out parts of it down here. And for me, has the left side of my body pretty well and the right side, but the hat, it doesn't quite know what to select in the hat. So I need to go ahead and fix that. But I'll just show you. If we go ahead and select and mask this, you can see what it's going to look like. The hat is going to be gone. The trophy is going to be gone. And yeah, this is not the cutout that I want. So I select and masked this. I'm going to go ahead and take my brush tool again that we used in a previous exercise, increase the size a little bit. And in the last tool, since I was trying to refine the edges a little bit and delete information, now I'm trying to tell Photoshop, hey, we want this information added back in. So I'll increase my size of the tool to about 51, and I'm just going to go ahead and hold my mouse down and click on the information that I still want in the photo, which is the hat in this case. And you can see how it's clearing away all that transparency. I want to zoom in a little bit up here. Click on my zoom tool, go ahead and click back to my brush tool. And I'm going to lower this here a little bit. A lot of stuff when you're doing things like this in Photoshop, it takes time. And for some people, they're just naturally gifted at stuff like this, the artistic type people. I am not one of those. So your cutout will probably be better than mine. And if it's the same quality as mine, well, then you're kind of just like me when it comes to design. Not that great, but enough to get by. Okay, so kind of got much of the hat taken care of. You can see I left out, or in trying to tell Photoshop I want some of this stuff not in, it 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 gave me a little bit of that background that I do want in. So if you recall from the previous picture, we'll just go ahead and click Alt Option and say that, yeah, we want this stuff out. So I'm kind of redoing what I accidentally put back in. And again, it's not likely going to be perfect, and that's fine. I basically just want to try to get a general outline of the hat. So let's see how that looks. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out here. I'm just going to type 70% here in my zoom. And to the naked eye, that looks okay, I think. The hat is on a little weird there. But for the sake of time, I'll keep going. Now we have the trophy here. Remember, I wanted much of the trophy to be displayed. We'll go back to 100% here. Make sure my brush tool is selected. I'm going to go ahead and increase my brush size. What I'm going to do here is I kind of don't know. I can't see the trophy. So it's easier for me to just have a big brush here so I could see the whole trophy, and then I could work on eliminating the edges for transparency. So I know it messed up this part, the leg. Okay, now I can see my whole trophy. So I'll make my brush much smaller, and I'm going to zoom in much more so I can really see this. Back to my brush. Okay, that's a little too small. Here we go. So I'm holding Alt Option again. Oops, I slipped. Control Z. Okay, all right. I'm going to zoom out. I want to make sure I do new layer with new mask again, hit OK. And I want to go ahead and save this. First, I'm going to save it as a Photoshop file because unlike the previous photo, I did a lot of work with this one. And I might want to go back someday and do some more or clean up some of the edges again. So it automatically saves as a PSD. That's the first option. So I'll go ahead and save it as that. Now, again, I mentioned this last week that if you save something as a Photoshop file, it will not be able to open up in any non-Adobe program. And in this case, we also want to do the export as a PNG. Because we already exported our previous photo as a PNG, I know the settings will be how I want them to be. So I'll just do File, Quick Export as PNG, click Save, and we'll see how this photo looks now as a PNG. If I go ahead and open it up here, I can see what it looks like on this background. That looks nice. And again, I'm going to just do the test, place it in Photoshop, and you can see the background is completely gone. We did a nice job with this cutout, but I'm sure you could do better. So that's going to wrap up this week's lesson and wrap up our brief section on Photoshop. Next week, we're going to focus on InDesign. Remember, in your Canvas shell, you will have the files that we use today. It's just 2 pictures. You'll have to download them and then open up Photoshop on your computer, and you can work with those there. And we also have the assignment prompt where I want you to put your 2 photos that you edited. The first one will be the Joe mug. The second one will be the Joe Matt Champs, and they both should be PNG files. If you have any questions, feel free to find me. And I also have posted some helpful links in the Canvas page if you need some additional instruction. I put in some other videos focusing on this topic as well. I'll see you next time.